February 19, 2013, Los Angeles, California. Clients of the Cecil Hotel complain about putrid water. Maintenance is sent to the rooftop to inspect the water tank which provided the entire hotel with its water. As the employee gazes down inside the water tank, the putrefied body of a woman stares back at him, providing the simple but grim explanation for the foul-tasting water. The body was identified as Mrs. Elisa Lam, a Canadian student who had vanished from the hotel on New Year's Eve. For most, this will be the first time hearing about Elisa Lam's case, while for others, the name is far too familiar and the very definition of an iconic death. However, no matter how famous her case might be to the internet sleuths, her death remains unexplained, adding yet another mystery to the Cecil Hotel's macabre background. Indeed, it had not been the hotel's first time at hosting not just people, but also horrible events. In 1985, the hotel serves as a hunting ground to Richard Ramirez, also affectionately known as the Night Stalker. In 1991, the hotel transitions from the jurisdiction of one beast to another, this time providing prey to Jack Unterweger, the Vienna Strangler. And if it seems like two serial killers are already a lot, the Cecil Hotel also has ties with the most famous murder in Los Angeles history, the case of the Black Dahlia. The victim, Elizabeth Short's mutilated corpse, was found in a second location, but she was reported to have been drinking by the bar nowhere else than the Cecil Hotel on the very eve of her demise. But let's get back to Elisa and her untimely death. Her case file might be famous, but it actually does not contain much more than circumstantial evidence. How can a young woman vanish inside a commercial building, only to leave behind nothing but breadcrumbs? There are a lot of speculated theories, most of them extrapolating from the evidence or lack of it. Our first theory was the very first theory authorities explored, the intentional disappearance. You see, Elisa Lam was a successful engineering student coming from a happy immigrant family. It's difficult to explain why such a person would want to disappear, but there is more. Her family explained to the Californian authorities that their daughter suffered from bipolar disorder and depression, for which she took several very effective medications, like Effexor, Wellbutrin, and Seroquel. And that is about all the evidence there is to support the intentional disappearance theory. Suffering from mental illnesses and needing to travel seems to be the only two criteria the authorities are looking for when faced with a missing persons case like Elisa. Upon further investigation, they uncovered evidence which suggests that the young woman had not been taking her medicine since the beginning of the trip. But even if she could have engaged in risky manic behavior, nothing she could do herself can explain the condition in which she was found. Her passing was classified as an accident, and her case was closed. The second theory involves foul play and the intervention of a second individual, potentially putting the hotel on the stove to be picked apart. The hotel's defense ended up raising suspicion and attracting attention to the hotel staff. In their statement, the hotel says clearly that the door to the roof cannot be opened by the guests and that the water tank latch should have been locked as well. This confirmed that the hotel staff had to have played a part in her death, intentional or accidental. Their defense remains that even if the roof was left unlocked by a forgetful employee, no company would ever expect a human being to climb inside a water tank to have a swim, especially in downtown Los Angeles. No employee ended up being held accountable, and the authorities were keen to close the case swiftly. Case closed, however, is not synonymous with solved for the internet. You see, there is a mysterious place on the internet which we call the true crime community. This is a place where a closed file means nothing, and where millions of individuals discuss gruesome murders on the daily. Despite being amateurs, these people have much more power than anyone can imagine. Acting like freelance investigators, the community is known for contributing to solving cases all over the world. And while the majority of them do good, there is another part of the true crime media consumer who actually do harm. It's difficult to imagine how a couple thousand people on the internet can harm a woman who has already passed away, but it actually happened. While the authorities investigated real-life evidence, the internet was loudly suggesting that they were wrong and that the explanation for her death was much, much darker. The theory these individuals supported was one of the supernatural kind. The Cecil Hotel was haunted by its monstrous past, and Elisa Lam fell prey to a menace of the fourth kind: ghosts. Of course, the professionals were not affected by the hearsay, but on the internet, this theory was getting millions and millions of clicks, completely taking over all the true crime forums and far more popular sites such as YouTube. The internet's theory was entirely based on a CCTV video taken inside of the hotel's elevators. In the video, you can see a distressed Elisa entering the elevator while looking over her shoulder and hiding from what seems like an invisible assailant. The video was immediately made the central point of the internet's investigation and perceived as a tangible proof supporting the theory of the supernatural. Creepy, unexplained, mysterious were words used to describe the very last video where Elisa Lam is seen alive. However, upon further inspection, the video makes a lot of sense and there is nothing scary about it. A calm Elisa Lam is seen going down to the lobby, asking something to the clerk before heading back to the elevator and along to her own room. It is as she enters the elevator that the key element is made visible: the absence of her glasses. She crouches down to get closer to the buttons and seems to settle on one with difficulty. The elevator doors remain open. She waits inside the elevator for a few seconds before noticing that the doors are not closing. She then swiftly verifies the exterior of the door and then goes back inside and hides to make sure her body was not causing the issue. She walks out again, simply looking in disbelief as to why the doors were not closing. She steps back inside and outside multiple times before going to one side and signaling something with her arms to someone who seems off camera, as if making somebody else aware that the elevator was not in function. By that point, the elevator doors close at precisely 3 minutes, and Elisa is nowhere to be seen ever again, almost as if she had decided to simply take the stairs. The video is extremely blurry, but some people suggest that she had accidentally pressed on the open doors button. It is very difficult to understand where the ghosts start and where they finish. It is also very difficult to understand what phenomenon the ghosts were responsible for, but the important thing to notice is how Elisa Lam walks away unharmed, leaving the possibilities open to suicide, an accident, or foul play. It is virtually impossible for anyone to imagine what her parents felt upon being spectators to the ghostly chaos. Her parents never stopped speaking out about the unjust way the case was handled, even going as far as trying to have her case reopened in 2015. But putting yourself in their shoes, it is easy to take offense in the way the internet treated their daughter, in the way they were calling her case everything but a tragedy. Everything but the story of a young woman who could have very well been purposely suffocated to death and left to rot in the dark for weeks. There is no telling what would have happened if the internet had taken her parents' side instead of playing Ghostbusters. No matter what truly happened to Elisa Lam, accident or not, her name should evocate feelings of respect and compassion for the living relatives. Instead, it reminds of a ghost story, and that only adds to the tragedy. The internet has failed the real Elisa Lam, the woman she was before entering the elevator for the last time. To this day, she remains an internet ghost and a very much loved daughter.